Sophie looked at herself in the mirror. It was the face of a gaunt old woman. "Don't worry, old thing," said Sophie, surprised at how calm she felt. "You look quite healthy, but you can't stay here." She hobbled over to the shop door and carefully put up the closed notice. Her joints creaked as she moved, but she was relieved to discover that she was quite a hale old woman. She collected a parcel of bread and cheese, let herself out, and hobbled away down the street. After a while, Sophie's back began to ache. She sat down on a bank to rest and eat her bread and cheese. In the hedge behind her, she found a stout stick, and when she set off walking again, she found the stick a great help. Towards the end of the afternoon, Sophie worked her way quite high into the hills. The hedges gave way to bare banks, and beyond spread heathery upland. Sophie kept grimly on. By now her knobbly old feet ached, and her back, and her knees. All at once she couldn't walk a step further, and collapsed onto a stone by the wayside. It got cold on the stone as the sun went down. After a bit she sighed and stood up, creaking. "I never realised before what old people had to put up with," she panted as she laboured uphill. "Still, I don't think wolves will eat me. I must be far too dry and tough. That's one comfort." Night was coming down fast now, and Sophie's panting and the creaking of her limbs were so loud in her ears that it took her a while to notice that some of the noise wasn't coming from herself at all. She looked up blurrily. Wizard Howl's castle was rumbling and bumping towards her across the moorland, smoke blowing up in clouds from behind its black battlements. Sophie leaned on her stick and watched. Her main thought was that all that smoke must mean a large fireside somewhere inside those tall black walls. "Well, why not?" she said to her stick. "Wizard Howl isn't likely to want my soul for his collection. He takes only young girls." She raised her stick and waved it imperiously at the castle. "Stop!" she shrieked. The castle obediently came to a rumbling halt about 50 feet uphill from her. Sophie hobbled towards the large black door. Thinking of chairs and firesides, she stretched her hand out eagerly. Her hand couldn't come near it. Some invisible wall was stopping her. "Very well," said Sophie, "I'll find your back door." She hobbled off to the left-hand corner of the castle and made her way round till she found another door, much smaller and shabbier. As Sophie approached, the castle started to move again, and the door began to travel away sideways from her. "Oh, no, you don't!" shouted Sophie. She ran after the door and hit it violently with her stick. "Open up!" The door sprang open inwards, still moving away sideways. Sophie, by hobbling furiously, managed to get one foot up onto its doorstep. Then she hopped and scrambled and hopped again, while the castle gathered speed over the uneven hillside. She threw herself inside, but she had to drop her stick and hang on to the open door in order not to be jolted straight out again. When she began to get her breath, she realised that a boy was standing in front of her. Beyond him were some definitely wizardly things, like leather books, crooked bottles, and an old, brown, grinning human skull. On the other side was a fireplace with a small fire burning in the grate. Placed beside it was a low chair with a cushion on it. Sophie pushed the boy aside and dived for that chair. "Ah," she said. It was bliss. If anyone wanted to turn her out now, they were going to have to use extreme and violent magic to do it. The boy shut the door. Then he picked up Sophie's stick and politely leaned it against the chair for her. "Tell Wizard Howl," she said, "that this castle's going to come apart round his ears if it travels much further." "The castle's bespelled to hold together," said the boy, "but I'm afraid Howl's not here just at the moment." "When will he be back?" "Not till tomorrow. Can I help you instead? I'm Howl's apprentice, Michael." "I'm afraid only the wizard can possibly help me," said Sophie. "I'll wait, if you don't mind." She closed her eyes. "Tell him the name's Sophie." After a moment, Michael went back to his workbench. "So," thought Sophie, She'd have a whole night's shelter, even if it was on slightly false pretences. The kitchen or workshop was beautifully cosy. Soon she went properly to sleep. In the middle of the night, Sophie was woken by someone snoring. She jumped upright, rather irritated to discover that she was the one who'd been snoring. Michael had vanished, and the fire had burnt very low. There was a basket of logs beside her, so she stretched out a creaking arm and heaved a log onto the fire, which instantly flared up into blue and green flames. "Must be salt in that wood," murmured Sophie. She settled herself more comfortably. She put her knobbly feet on the fender and stared into the coloured flames, where she imagined a face. It would be a thin blue face, she murmured, with a thin blue nose. But those curly green flames on top are most definitely your hair. And those purple flames near the bottom make the mouth. You have savage teeth, my friend. Sophie could almost imagine it was looking at her. "If Howl can remove the spell," she said, "I suppose I'd have my heart eaten before I could turn round." "Don't you want your heart eaten?" asked the fire. It was definitely the fire that spoke. Sophie saw its purple mouth move as the words came out. "Naturally I don't," said Sophie. "What are you?" "A fire demon," answered the purple mouth. "I'm bound to this hearth by contract. And what are you? I can see you're under a spell." This roused Sophie from her dreamlike state. "You can? And can you take the spell off?" There was a poppling, blazing silence, while the orange eyes in the demon's wavering blue face travelled up and down Sophie. "It's a strong spell. It feels like one of the Witch of the Wastes to me." "It is," said Sophie. The demon gazed at Sophie a moment longer. "But it seems more than that," he crackled. "I shall have to study it." "How long will that take?" "It may take a while. How about making a bargain with me? I'll break your spell if you agree to break this contract I'm under." Sophie looked warily at the demon's thin blue face. "This contract you're under," she said. "It's with Wizard Howl, is it?" "Of course," said the demon. "I'm fastened to this hearth, and I can't stir so much as a foot away. I'm forced to do most of the magic around here. I have to maintain the castle and keep it moving and do all the special effects that scare people off, as well as anything else Howl wants. Howl's quite heartless, you know." "All right," she said. "What are the terms of the contract? How do I break it?" An eager purple grin spread across the demon's blue face. "You agree to a bargain?" "If you agree to break the spell on me," said Sophie. She had a brave sense of saying something fatal. "Done!" cried the demon. "The problem is, I can't reveal the main clause of the contract. You'll have to stay here and discover it for yourself."